Today, we're unpacking the story of the Khilafat Movement. It's a story about a promise, a betrayal, and a massive uprising that shaped modern India.
I mean, think about that for a second. A war happening all the way over in Europe ends up causing this massive political explosion back in India. And it wasn't just one group. You had Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, all standing together for one cause. It sounds kind of wild, doesn't it? So how on earth did that happen?
Well, the answer, when you boil it all down, is pretty simple, but also incredibly powerful. The whole thing kicked off because of a broken promise. A promise made in the heat of battle, and a betrayal that would change everything.
All right, so to really get this, we've got to go back in time. Let's set the scene. It's the middle of World War I.
The year is 1914. The Ottoman Empire, which was the seat of the caliphate and home to the caliph, the spiritual leader for Muslims across the globe, sides with Germany against Great Britain. Now, this put Indian Muslims in a really tough spot. I mean, do you fight for your colonial rulers, the British, or do you side against your religious leader? The British knew they couldn't afford to lose their support.
And that's when they made a crucial promise. They basically told Indian Muslims, look, fight for us in this war, and we guarantee, if we win, we will not harm the caliphate. We will not dismember the Ottoman Empire. And that was the deal. With that assurance in hand, millions of Indians, including a huge number of Muslims, went and fought for the British.
But you can probably guess what happened next. The war ends, the dust settles, and that promise, it was completely and utterly shattered.
And you can see it right here, plain as day. On one side, you got the solemn promise. The caliphate will be protected. On the other side, the harsh reality, the Treaty of Sèvres, which literally carved up the Ottoman Empire. This wasn't just politics. For Indian Muslims, this felt like a deep religious betrayal, and the shockwaves were felt all across India.
And that betrayal, it lit a fire. But it wasn't just anger. It actually led to one of the most remarkable displays of unity in India's entire struggle for freedom.
Now, this wasn't just random protests. The response was super organized. First, they held a Khilafat conference to figure out a game plan. From there, they formed the All India Khilafat Committee, led by the charismatic Ali brothers, who were just out of prison. Their mission? To travel all over the country and mobilize the public, making sure everyone knew how the British had broken their word. And you can see just how powerful this unity was in the early days. A delegation went to meet the British Viceroy, and get this, it wasn't just Muslim leaders. It was Hindus, Sikhs, and Christians all standing together. But while the Viceroy in India sort of listened, the message from the Prime Minister back in London was basically, yeah, we don't really care. And that arrogance, well, that turned out to be a massive mistake.
As you can imagine, that attitude didn't go over well. As the movement got more and more intense, its tactics started to escalate. And that incredible unity we just talked about, it started to show some serious cracks.
People felt like they were being completely ignored. So the leaders decided that simply asking wasn't cutting it anymore. They had to put some real pressure on the British government. And that decision is what sent the whole movement down a much more chaotic and ultimately tragic path.
The main strategy became the non-cooperation movement. The idea came from the Khilafat Committee and was championed by Mahatma Gandhi and the Congress Party. The goal was to basically bring the entire British system to a screeching halt, boycott everything British, their goods, government jobs, schools, even their courts. The thinking was if you paralyze the whole administration, they have to listen.
Things got so desperate that some religious leaders declared India a land of war, a place where Muslims could no longer practice their faith freely. And their solution was radical: a mass migration, or hijrat, to Afghanistan. And look at that number. We're talking about more than 500,000 people who were so convinced this was their only option, they sold everything they owned and just left.
But this turned into an absolute catastrophe. At first, Afghanistan let some people in, but then they just sealed the borders. Suddenly you had thousands upon thousands of people stranded, with no money, no homes to return to, and literally nowhere to go. Many died on the journey back. It was a horrific human tragedy, all born out of political desperation.
While that tragedy was unfolding, back in India, that same desperation was exploding into violence. On the Malabar coast, the Mapla community rose up. Police fired on a gathering, killing 400 people. In a horrific follow-up, another 60 prisoners died from suffocation after being crammed into a closed railway wagon. And then, in 1922, came the infamous Chauri Chaura incident.
So during a protest in the village of Chauri Chaura, police attacked the crowd. The protesters retaliated, and they set the local police station on fire.
22 policemen were killed, trapped inside, and that single event would prove to be the movement's death knell.
The violence at Chauri Chaura set off a chain reaction. That, combined with events happening overseas, brought the entire Khilafat movement to an abrupt and stunning end.
So the movement was already reeling. Then came two fatal blows. First, Gandhi, appalled by the violence, called off the non-cooperation movement entirely. Just like that, the critical Hindu-Muslim alliance crumbled. Then came the final ironic twist, from Turkey itself. In 1923, the new leader, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, decided to create a modern republic, and he officially abolished the caliphate.
And just like that, it was over. The very institution that people had fought for, sacrificed for, and died for simply ceased to exist. And it wasn't even the British who did it, but the new Turkish government. The entire purpose of the Khilafat movement had just vanished overnight.
So we're left with this big question. Was the Khilafat movement just a failure? Or was it a defining chapter in India's struggle for its own identity? On one hand, it showed the incredible potential of Hindu-Muslim unity. But on the other, its collapse left deep scars, widening divisions that would tragically contribute to the partition of India decades later. It's a powerful lesson on how a single broken promise can shape the destiny of a subcontinent.